Welcome to the final part of the Nazi Germany walkthrough. This is the 16-mark question. This is the dragon. But as you'll see, it's a dragon that's very easy to slay if you know how. This question is all about judging. You have to judge something, use evidence, and argue. It's all about argument. A lot of you I know are very good arguments, as I've seen in my class. Now let's use that in the exam and really try and argue as strongly as possible. Let's have a look at an example. As you can see here, you get a choice of questions. I've chosen this first one, but you get a choice of 2 questions. And also what you get is a nice bullet points which reminds you of what you're writing about. So let's have a look at this question. Was the growth of unemployment after 1929 the main reason why the Nazi Party was able to take power in Germany in 1933? Explain your answer. You may use the following in your answer and any other information of your own. It gives us 4 bullet points. The growth of unemployment, fear of communism, Nazi use of propaganda, and the role of the SA. What you need to do in order to get the marks in the bank is be able to write a paragraph on each of these bullet points. You're very welcome to bring in your own knowledge and make a bullet point of your own, but to stay safe you might want to just focus on these 4 bullet points here. So let's have a go, starting with the first one, growth of unemployment. So you need to argue strongly. So firstly, it could be argued that unemployment was the main factor in the Nazis' rise to power. How? Before we do that, let's look at some evidence. What happened to unemployment? In 1929, unemployment was 1.3 million. In 1933, it rose to 6 million. So we've got our evidence there. Okay, so we've got our point, we've got our argument, we've got our evidence. Now we need to again explain it, and more importantly, to argue how this led to the Nazis improving. This meant that Nazi ideas became more popular as they promised jobs and economic recovery. They promised, as you may remember, to rearm the country, which would reopen factories and provide people with work. They promised to make Germany self-sufficient, which would help their economy recover and provide jobs. So linking everything back to the question, which would help their economy recover and provide jobs. Furthermore, they promised to rip up the Treaty of Versailles. My year 11s might remember when I ripped it up in class, which would mean an end to reparations. So Germany would have more money to spend on itself, on creating jobs, and paying people unemployment benefits if they have to. But also that they could then expand their army and provide a job in the army to every German, which of course is what they ended up doing. To sum it up, this all shows that unemployment was the main reason the Nazis grew in popularity. So a great paragraph there arguing why, massive explanation, massive argument about why this all did lead to the Nazis gaining popularity. But, you know, the question is judging and weighing up and arguing both sides. So what you also need to include now is the opposing point of view, that it was actually fear of communism. So you need to maybe say contrastingly, just to let the examiner know you're talking about something else, it could be argued that fear of communism was the main reason that the Nazis grew in power. Talk about the Spartacus Rising in 1919. Talk about the Reichstag fire and how that was blamed on the communists. Talk about the middle class and the farmers, their fear of the communists. The big business, the industrialists who gave money to Hitler so he could fight the communists. This was a big reason why the fear of communism was the main reason. Nothing to be scared of in my opinion, but in those days the Germans were really scared of communism. Also, contrastingly, it could be argued that propaganda was the main reason. I'm just getting this from here. Propaganda was the main reason. Think of the use of radio, the use of cinema, the use of posters to paint the Jews as the scapegoat, Hitler making speeches, flying around the country. Think of the films. Think of all the things the Nazis did to try and capture people's imagination with the propaganda. That won over people, that got them thinking about the Nazis, that got them won over to the Nazi cause. Make that argument. Finally, you need to talk about the last bullet point. It could be argued that the SA were the main reason the Nazis grew in support. Think about the SA as Hitler's stormtroopers, intimidating opponents, murdering opponents, beating up people, intimidating people at the poll booths, making sure that people voted the right way, breaking up opposition meetings. The SA were incredibly important in physically intimidating people into voting Nazi. So you'd end up with 4 paragraphs, each one saying how that reason was the main one why Hitler came to power, and that would be perfect to get 10 or 11 or 12 marks out of 16, cruising for that B, cruising for that A. But if you want an extra 4 marks to get 16 out of 16, what you need to add also is a conclusion, bringing everything together. So in conclusion, you could write, okay, in conclusion, and what they're looking for here is you need to be able to argue that there's no one reason why Hitler came to power, they're all linked together. So in conclusion, they're all linked together. Unemployment was the spark that gave Nazis more popularity, but they had to make the most of that opportunity with propaganda. Nazi propaganda would not have been believed, coming up with this on the spot, and this is what you can do in the exam when you have time, without a genuine fear of communism. And the SA were vital to secure votes. Therefore, they were all linked together, and they all played their part in the Nazi victory. And they could not have succeeded unless all of these reasons and factors were brought together in the dramatic years of 1929 to 33. That would be the A star, just rounding it off, finishing it off, tying things up in a bow. But the main point you need to argue is, 1 paragraph, argue for each bullet point. Even if you haven't got much evidence, much detail, just argue for those 4 bullet points. If you have time, finish off with a conclusion. 12 marks out of 16 for the bullet points, 16 out of 16 with a conclusion. And then you'll have conquered and defeated the Nazi Germany paper.